Hey, welcome to UK Wildcraft. So the question I get asked the most by people about foraging is, how do I get started in foraging? And it's a fair question because there's so many edible and poisonous species that it can be a bit overwhelming at first. So in this video I'm going to be giving you some of my top tips in how you can start identifying and picking your own wild foods. So my first tip is to get yourself some good foraging books. And in those books it's important that they've got nice clear photographs rather than illustrations. This one is the Collins Gem, Food for Free, and it's handy because it's a nice pocket size, and I've got a similar one for mushrooms as well. So I always take this with me when I'm going out walking. And also at home I've got some bigger books as well, more like reference books. So what you can do is, if you're unsure of plants, you can pick a couple, take them home and look through your reference books for more information. Next up is to keep a wild food diary. This is a really handy thing to have. My foraging knowledge increased a lot when I started doing this. So basically what you do when you find a new plant, you go to the date and you write down the type of plant, the location and any other useful tips. So for example, last year on April the 13th I went foraging and I found Alexander's. So I write down the location, and the other information was that it was in bloom. I also found some wild garlic there, and the flower buds were still unopened. So I know that if I go back on that date to that location, I will probably find Alexander's there that are in bloom. So that means I know I can use the side shoots. And the wild garlic flower buds are still unopened, so that means I can collect those for pickling. So it's just a good reference guide to have in future years if you want some ideas of what you can go foraging for in whatever time of year. It will give you all the information. And one little tip I'd say is better to get a diary that is 1 day per page, so you've got a lot more room to keep filling out more and more things that you've been foraging. Tip 3 is to learn from professionals. So go on foraging walks. There's usually local ones that are reasonably priced. It's good to go and get some hands-on knowledge, and they can show you one-to-one or in a small group what you can be foraging, and it's a good safe way to learn. And you can also go on like full weekend ones or even like 4 or 5 day foraging courses. It's a really good way to learn. Next tip is to start off small. Don't go trying to learn all the plants out there in one go, because you're more likely to confuse yourself and end up picking something that's poisonous. So just learn like 1 or 2 plants at a time and learn everything about them. Learn their common names, their Latin name, what time of year the plants are available, and do the plants have any poisonous lookalikes? And if so, learn those plants as well. And once you're comfortable with those 1 or 2 plants, then move on to another 1 or 2 a month, and just keep adding an extra 1 or 2 a month, and keep notes of these plants, and it will keep adding to your knowledge, and eventually you'll have quite a big database of plants that you can go out and comfortably forage. Next up, always have 2 or 3 key identifiers that show you have the correct plant. For example, here we have primrose, and a few key identifiers for this plant are: the leaves are oblong, they have a crinkled texture, and I know that on the back they have a really pronounced white vein, and the back of the leaf is quite furry. That is enough for me to be sure that I have primrose. Just a few more key identifiers. You can look at the flowers. They're pale yellow, darker yellow in the centre, and they have 5 petals. So I'm 100% that I have primrose here, so I know this is edible. So you can use your sight and your sense of smell as forms of identification, but never use taste as a form of identification. Only taste something when you know you have the correct plant. And that leads me on to my final and most important point. Only eat something when you're 100% confident in your identification of the plant. Never eat something if you're a little bit unsure. Never try to be brave and taste something if you're not sure. What you can do if you're unsure is pick some of the plants, take them home and look at your reference books and make sure you're learning for next time you go out. Just a couple of extra little tips. Get yourself some equipment to take foraging with you. You don't have to get anything too expensive. I always take a knife with me, Mora knife are good from Sweden. They're not too expensive and they're really reliable. You can usually get them for about 10 to 20 quid. Grab yourself a foraging bag as well, and it's a good idea to take gloves with you as well. Also, be respectful for nature. Don't take too much off one plant. Let some grow to maturity and leave some for the wildlife. And try not to take more than you need. Okay, if you've got any other tips that you want to leave for other people, feel free to leave them down in the comments section. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel here.